Why don't good guys become police officers? Why don't they sign up to take the test? I think a better question is actually why don't good guys who become police officers remain good? I think that's probably a better question, but we'll attempt to tackle that another day. My name is Dr. L. I'm a retired police officer, retired police captain, and thank you so much for checking out this episode. Welcome to the breakdown. In today, I'm going to review something that was sent to me, a question that was asked to me. I've had an ongoing chat with someone for a while now, looking at a particular case. I'm not going to get into his case, but he did send me an email, or excuse me, a message that I'm going to review. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to say their name or expose that, but I think it's a good something that it's going to make for good discussion for today. So the question again is, why don't good people want to take the test, sign up to be recruited, want to be recruited, aim to be recruited, and we seem to get a plethora of individuals who are corrupt on the take, end up doing bad things when they get in office, et cetera, right? Now, let me start this off with saying it's obviously just a perception problem. The vast majority of police officers uphold their vows, uphold their ethical standards, are good people, come from good homes, and want to do the right things. But we just don't hear about those people. So just because the news is filled, or your news feed is filled, or your Instagram or your YouTube is filled with people who are seen to be on the take, corrupt, etc., that's just not the case. And also, I would say that those people who get caught deserve to be caught, and those people who are in the limelight, if you will, receiving their share of negative publicity, have probably done something to deserve that level of trust, distrust, etc. And so I think it's the process taking care of itself. But the question remains, why don't good people want to become police officers? I'm gonna break this down. But before we get into it, I want to talk about let's bring out a story that became kind of national headlines. We all heard about the George Floyd incident and what happened with that particular officer, Derek Chauvin, and his placing his knee onto the neck of George Floyd, and then causing him to obviously become unalive. We all understand that. We watched it, and during the pandemic, that was all that we had to talk about. In addition to the pandemic, but I want to talk to you about a story that came around that time, and that was a fired officer, black officer, who tried to stop other officers from doing the same thing that happened to George Floyd. Incidentally, the same thing happened in New York, and that person's name is escaping me right now. If I have to edit this out, I'll put the name in here, but it's escaping me right now. And that was Eric Garner. What year was that? 2014. I Can't Breathe. Eric Garner, right? Also being choked out and again passing away because of that. So let's take a look at this particular case. And this is the case of a judge rules in the favor of black officer fired for stopping colleague's chokehold. And this article was published by Axios. A New York court on Tuesday reinstated the pension of former Buffalo police officer Carol Horn, who was fired for intervening when a white colleague had a black man in a chokehold during a 2006 arrest. So this is 2006. She then was fired. She had to take the people to court, and they refused to give her her pension. She was denied her pension, denied everything because this was the good old boys club. Now I've gone through all this. I'm not going to rehash all of the issues that are going on with law enforcement, but go watch some of my other videos talking about the history of law enforcement, and you'll understand why this particular person was fired. There is a good old boys club, the thin blue line, all that type of stuff, the blue wall of silence, all that type of stuff has been a detriment to the reputation of all of law enforcement. A few officers who did hold a blue wall of silence, who were engaged in racist profiling, driving while black, racist profiling, all this other stuff that we've all heard throughout the years. I'm assuming that you have some understanding about what I'm talking about, have all tainted all of law enforcement. And not only, it's tainted all of law enforcement. So we'll get into this in a little bit. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Driving the news, State Supreme Court Judge Dennis Ward noted in his ruling similar cases like the death of George Floyd. Ward said that the role of other officers at the scene in such instances had come under scrutiny, particularly their complicity in failing to intervene to save the life of a person to whom such unreasonable physical force is applied. As a result, now remember the U.S. government didn't do anything about George Floyd. They didn't sign up anything that would. It was because of George Floyd incident that we finally got an anti-lynching law passed. But up until this point, legislatures had done nothing about that, right? And even a George Floyd bill was never passed. But fortunately, a lot of states and or individual departments said something that they had to do. In fact, when this was passed, shortly after the George Floyd incident, the state of Connecticut, where I live, passed legislation requiring two or three new classes, and I taught two of them. One was police legitimacy. I was in retirement at the time. They asked me to come and teach it. Police legitimacy and civil rights up until history of policing up until the civil rights movement. And I had to walk officers through what happened during civil rights, what happened from the time of Reconstruction up until the Civil Rights bill was passed. So I took officers, recruits. I took recruits through the timeline of progression. What was going on through the police, the racism that was going on, not only racism, but also a really male dominated space, right? So I had to talk about all that, right? And then I talked about police legitimacy. What is that? And how come people don't view police departments as legitimate? So I taught those particular classes to new recruits. To her credit, Officer Horn did not merely stand by, but instead sought to intervene, despite the penalty she ultimately paid for doing so. She saved a life that day, and history will now record her for the hero that she is. But she wasn't a hero in 2006 when this occurred. She was sought as a traitor, as someone who wasn't down with the blue wall of silence, who looked at the us versus them mentality, and they wanted to know, who are you? Are you one of us? Are you one of them? Right? This idea, this as we talked about in law enforcement, this warrior versus guardian mindset, us versus them mentality. Carol Horn wanted to be one of the people, and she was punished for it, not only by her department who fired her, but by the city of Buffalo, pretty sizable city, Buffalo, New York, who said, no, we're not going to give you your pension because you didn't do the right thing. So when we want to talk about corrupt departments, I've often said you got to take a look at City Hall, because what does it take to hire a new officer, right? If they fired this officer, Horn, what is it going to take to rehire her? They got to do advertisements, they got to do testing, they have to, buy a new officer equipment, clothes, guns, tasers, all this different training. So a lot of times and this is what happens when we talk about systemic racism. It's not just a police department. Everybody looks at the police department. No, it's the mayor. It's the city hall. Nobody wants to do this type of thing, whether it's for racial reasons or it's a financial reasons or it's a combination of both. Ward partially based his decision to overturn the 2010 ruling, right? She had gone to court. 2006 to 2010, she had gone to court. She fired in 2006, gets in the court in 2010 because she wants her pension, because she says, I did the right thing, ruling that upheld her firing on legislation signed by the Buffalo mayor Byron Brown in October, known as Carroll's Law, which made it a crime for law enforcement to fail to intervene when another officer is using excessive force, and also protects whistleblowers, per the Buffalo News. So in other words, at the time of George Floyd, they go back and they say, you know what, this was crazy. What happened there? No other officers, and as I started to say, police departments individually passed individual laws talking about duty to intervene, no chokeholds, and all these different rules that came as a result of the George Floyd incident. And so once the Buffalo mayor Byron Brown said, we're going to pass Carroll's Law, because she was ahead of the curve. She was already performing a duty to intervene. She was already there, right? The big picture. Horn, who was black, said she heard the handcuffed man say he couldn't breathe, invoking the deaths in police custody of George Floyd and Eric Garner. Of course, this didn't happen yet. This has happened in 2006. Two black men who said this in their dying words, which have become a national rallying cry against police brutality, the New York Times notes. Horn said her fellow officer punched her in the face when she tried to stop him. So here's a good person. Here's Officer Horn who's trying to intervene. Hey, listen, man, take your hands off his neck. He said he can't breathe, and this dude turns around and whacks her in the face. Not only a fellow officer, but he whacks a female officer in the face. Think about that. Whose side are you on here? Whose side are you on? That's what they want to know. The Buffalo Police Department claimed that she had put her fellow officers at risk. This is what the police department said. Her higher ups, her lieutenants, captains, assistant chiefs. And not only that, but she went to court and they agreed with her. Went to court outside the system, outside the system, the administration. And she was fired in 2008. There was no video of the incident. Of note, the judge ruling in favor of Horn lawsuit means Horn will receive full pension, back pay, and benefits. I'm not going to continue reading that. You can go over Axios and read that. But I'm trying to lay the foundation here as to why good people oftentimes don't want to become police officers. That was then. So if you don't know, I actually went back to school during the pandemic and received my doctorate in 2023. And in my doctorate, I talked about police. It's kind of talked about police administration because I did a doctorate in leadership with a concentration in criminal justice. And so I talked a little bit about retention problems and even recruitment problems in my dissertation. And police departments have an issue with recruiting minorities and females, and young people. I myself went to college campuses throughout the state of Connecticut and tried to get people to sign up, and they were just not interested in becoming police officers. And we're trying to figure out why. Some of the reasons are because of these hours that people work, that the officers have to work. Nobody wants to work on weekends or holidays. A big part is the YouTube sensation. They look at these videos and they see the officers being assaulted, attacked, sometimes in firefights and this, that, and the other. And they say, I'm going to try to figure this out, try to do something differently to become police officers. And another big problem is even when it seems as if the officer is correct in what they're doing and they're fighting for their life and they use what seems to be a justifiable use of force, they still have to go through the rigmarole, still have to go through the process of being scrutinized and go to court and things along those lines. And I know I actually do work for lawyers, so I understand that this can be problematic and traumatic to the officers because they think that they did the right thing, but there's still a process you have to go through. And they said to themselves, they don't want to do that. Now that's for the young folks who are college age, right? They're not thinking about that, right? Then you got women who were in law enforcement being sexually harassed and in a male-dominated space, and so law enforcement has had to do a lot of work with that. And of course, there's the minority issue of the history of racism. As I mentioned, I taught these classes, history of racism within these particular departments. So this is why, and again, remember this article that I just read to you. This female officer was punched in the face allegedly by this officer who she tried to pull off. So you want to know why good people don't want to sign up for this. These are some of the reasons that people don't want to sign up for that. Some people don't want to be involved in violence. They don't want to work midnight shift. I remember there was one guy, he became a police officer. It was always his dream to become a police officer. He's married at the time. He had a good job before, but he just always wanted to be a police officer. And so he becomes a police officer, and his wife is just not having it. She's used to him being working 9 to 5, home on the weekends, home on holidays. And she said, listen, it's either me or this job. And so he chose his family, which he probably should have done. He went back to what he was doing, which was a pretty good job. But this is some of the things that people don't want to become police officers, right? All right. So let's get into, I think I'm going to show this one here. At the stage. Okay. So this is a message that came to me through Facebook Messenger. So he asked me, and I didn't clip what he asked me. Maybe I'll put it on here first. Hold on. Okay, let me put this on the screen here. So this is a post. This is a screenshot of an interview, of back and forth that I and this gentleman had concerning the video that I made about the gypsy cop, right? So go back and watch that particular video. I did that video, and we had a little bit of back and forth about why gypsy cops or wandering cops, whatever what people want to call them, go back and forth, and how come the system doesn't change, how come administrations don't change, and we kind of had that exchange. And then he wrote, the bar is so low due to horrible people that have been hired, that whatever real love the public had for law enforcement is now long ago and far away history. And I wrote, the bar is low because people see the treatment and negative comments in viral vids and then say to themselves, nah, policing is not for me. Then we're left with the worst and most unqualified people. Well, that was a bit over the top for me. Let me just say, there are certainly plenty of good, qualified people who love the job, who love what they do, and who are dedicated to truth, justice, and the American way, like Superman, and who are dedicated to the morale, ethics, and upholding the standard, and making sure that the badge remains untarnished, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So all that is definitely true. All right. So then he says to me, uh, "Don't don't you think that if departments would weed out perfectly, preferably decertify the unfit officers, chuckleheads, action-seeking Rambos, bullies, those on the take involved in criminal activities and so forth, the image and effectiveness would turn around, resulting in people of high character, those like yourself competing for the opportunity to join a prestigious profession." Again, I think that there's a long history that has to go behind this, and I think that, again, yes, we could do that, but there has been an unwillingness until the spotlight has been put on. The reason I talk about race and a lot of my videos is because race is the underlying factor, right? W.E.B. Du Bois years ago wrote that the America's issue, America's problem is the color line. That's what it is. So when you treat African Americans bad, eventually it's going to seep into the rest of society. That's just a fact, right? And so a lot of times, unfortunately, white folks start to figure that out. Look at January 6th, look at other police related killings and stuff, right? And they start covering up because of black people. They shoot a black person, they're going to cover it, they cover it up, they're going to cover up everyone else. So what are the two main events in American history that really changed law enforcement? First was the civil rights movement, in which cameras were everywhere, right? It was Dr. King's idea to have nonviolent protests. And so the world could see that just by trying to get the right to vote, that are trying to sit at the lunch counter, that the whole world would see how violent these people were in attacking people who just wanted a sandwich, people who just wanted to exercise their rights to vote, having water hoses turned on them, dogs turned on them. But this was the way that it was. And the second incident I would say is Rodney King and subsequent tapings, body worn cameras, etc., cell phone footage, etc., displaying what was going on here. So there was no willingness to change, and this is evident too in 2006 when Carol Horn was fired, and then and it was upheld in 2008 in a separate administrative process and hearing. It didn't change until again in 2021 or so, in which she had to go back and sue and say, I did the right thing. So yes, there are a lot of Rambo bullies and knuckleheads and chuckleheads and whatever else he said, action seeking and all this stuff. Yeah. And it's going to take a long time for that to go away. It's unfortunate, but that's the case. My father was a firefighter, a chief of two departments, and he would share with stories about men. There were no women firefighters then, who were slackers, rumor spreaders, racists, and physically unfit, but he could not fire them. Why can't you fire the racists? Why can't you? I mean, rumor spreaders, you can tell them to shut up, right? Slackers, but why couldn't you fire the racists? Why? Why? The whole system was in on it. And physically unfit, but he could not fire them. He was injured in duty, and after many painful years, died from his injuries he sustained. His departments were like a family, and everyone knew everyone's business, everyone's business. Were there African Americans working there? Were there Hispanics working there? Were there Asians working there? Did everyone know their business? Were they allowed to work there? The competition to be a cop is a tremendous and highly competitive. Why is law enforcement so unattractive to people of good character? Again, it's because of the history that goes on. I interviewed a guy. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay, so I interviewed a guy. His name is Dr. Sterling. Dwight Sterling, Dr. Dwight Sterling. And the name of the episode is Why the Military Punishes Misconduct, but Police Close Ranks, with Dr. Dwight Sterling. If you go over to any place that you listen to podcasts, or you go over to Podbean, you'll be able to find this episode under Dr. L's podcast. This was back when I was just doing audio, not so much video, because I don't have a face for video. But I said, hey, I'll break a couple of cameras here. So go over to listen to that episode in which we talk about this type of thing, right? And why people don't want to become police officers, and the punishment that, or the lack thereof, that goes on. So this is the issue that we're trying to confront for a long time now. So we have these professional organizations that want to hire good people. But I would question whether the police were really interested in that type of thing. Again, going back to the history of policing, civil rights, history of policing, Jim Crow era, who were becoming police officers, how to get police officers, how to move up through the ranks, all the corruption that was going on, what the police were designed to do, the night, offshoots and cousins, or the progeny of night watchmen, slave patrols, all the way up until this time. Who wants to do that type of job? Only a certain type of personality and psychology wanted to do that type of job. Why is law enforcement so attracted to people of good character? Because they don't want to do that type of thing. Maybe people didn't want to call people the N-word and beat people up and drag people behind corners and then sexually abuse women. Maybe people didn't want to do that type of thing. And those things occurred within law enforcement. So law enforcement still has a lot to do to untarnish the badge that was done to so many people for so long. Hope that makes sense. Do you think that? Okay, so let's go on to this next one here. I'm sure police department is a good family too. So why not clean house? Because some people enjoy it. Some people, this is the way that they want things. This is the way they want to run things. This is the way that things are. This is the way we do things down here in our neck of the woods, right? We're not one of you all. This is the way this is the way we operate. This is the way we get down. That is a simple, hardcore truth that people have to face. I played another video in which there was a racist pastor. I made another video that it'll be released before this one, talking about a racist pastor, I believe in Austin, Texas, who just says it. Some people aren't like us. We had a Missouri senator say that these people aren't like us and this is our heritage. That type of talk is detrimental to individuals, and it infects the psyche of individuals. In fact, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play this Missouri Senator, Eric Schmidt, for his racist comments. And I played the other individual from the racist, from the church there. I'm not going to go down that road again. But this infects the hearts and minds of people. And, good people, I would assume, don't want to be part of this. So we're talking about why good people, seemingly don't want to sign up to be police officers. And sometimes some of the case is that they don't want to do it because they can't beat people up anymore. They can't talk about the good old days, right? Here we go. We'll play this here.
Army soldiers dying of frostbite at Valley Forge. The Pilgrims struggling to survive in the hard winter soil of Plymouth. The pioneers striking out from Missouri for the wild and dangerous frontier. The outnumbered Kentucky settlers repelling wave after wave of Indian war band attacks from beyond the stockade walls. All of them will be astonished to hear that they were only fighting for a proposition. They believed they were fighting for a nation, a homeland for themselves and their descendants. They fought, they bled, they struggled, they died for us. They built this country for us. America, in all its glory, is their gift to us. handed down across the generations. It belongs to us. It's our birthright. It's our heritage, our destiny. If America is everything and everyone, then it is nothing and no one at all. When they tear down our statues and monuments, mock our history, and insult our traditions, they're attacking our future as well as our past. By changing the stories we tell about ourselves, they believe they can build a new America with the new myths, new people. But America doesn't belong to them. It belongs to us. It's our home. It's a heritage entrusted to us by our ancestors. It's a way of life that is ours and only ours. If we disappear, then America too will cease to exist.
There's a lot.
So I would ask you to ask yourself, who is us? Who is us? Who's he talking about? Who's us and who's them? And you wonder why they have, you have issues with minorities wanting to join police departments, women wanting to join police departments, or when minorities do sign up, some of them, as I talked about in my dissertation, don't finish the academies. Why is that? Why? So who is us? Who's them? And why can't we get good people to become police officers who want to protect their communities, who want to become part of the American dream? Who are these people? Something to think about. I've been a real estate broker for 45 plus years, and there are too many unfit agents in the business. However, in California, there are professional standards committees of agents who can find and decertify rogue agents. I was a member of the Ventura County Pro Standards for 10 years based on the complaints that my committee researched. Dozens of agents were fined, some up to $15K. Some were turned over to law enforcement. Some went to the state agencies and made them surrender their license. There was no legal aspect for scofflaws. Since we were all legally bound to follow an unbreakable code of ethics. Don't get me wrong, police departments have code of ethics, but you have to understand that the police departments were established to do a certain thing, and that was control and corral minorities. And law enforcement was a secondary thought. It was a secondary thought, and they didn't want to telling their friends. They didn't want to do any of that. I was legally responsible for a broker for 50 to 60 agents that worked for me for decades. It was tough, but I fired agents all the time who were unfit to be agents, despite all the training and mentoring I gave them. The training and mentoring that you gave them, and I talk about this when I teach history classes about the police department. That was the training, and that was this is how we do things. Forget what that manual says. And these big thick manuals that police departments have is a new phenomenon. It's a new phenomenon because of the transparency that you're trying to do, because of not only George Floyd, but they've been around. They started changing really after Rodney King. The manuals got thicker and thicker and thicker about how to do things and who should be arrested and how we're going to arrest them and how we're going to take people to the hospital after they're injured and hurt and who we're going to perform things on and all this type of stuff, right? This is this is the history of police departments. Last one here. In mentoring, I gave them my agents did not use lethal weapons. Law enforcement is failing these people. I see your point about negative publicity obstructs recruiting, and I've learned that the majority of juries across the country back the blue. Hiring recruits of high character can be done if the profession backs the truly best and brightest and backs whistleblowers from within. I told you what happened to the other whistleblower. Told you. And a lot of these agencies, we talked about Eric Garner, they didn't want to indict him. Indict the officer. They didn't want to do it. A lot of these departments looked at these agents at these agencies as doing their bidding. Keep those people in line. Just like this guy said, that senator said, who is us, who is them, who should be kept in line, and who's a part of this American dream and not. Just like in the other video, in another video I did, go watch it. We talked about the pastor from Austin telling his kids about who should be a part of the American dream and who should be what part of town should stay away from, and they're only good if they come to this church, but if you see them out in the public, don't talk to them. They want that. They want that. a real estate broker, yeah, okay, listen, this is us. We about to move up. Where you don't take advantage of us, right? We're trying to make this dollar here. We're trying to move into a good neighborhood. We're trying to make some deals, but you keep them out. Redlining was a thing. Restrictive covenants was a thing. You don't do that. You don't do that to us. You do it to them. But the problem comes when you do it to them. Now you're doing it to us. Whoa, whoa! I played the video in another video about the let's see if I can find it here. About the former Philadelphia police officers. Whoa, whoa, whoa! You don't do that to us. You do it to them. Here we go. We'll play this here. I'm getting some text messages here.
Have no one to call if they're wrongly arrested. The white person will call their local political committee man or person. They'll call the parents, perhaps, of a teenager, will call the local politician. Yo, what's going on here? My child was arrested just because he didn't have his license. Why didn't you just tell him to go home and get his license? And things like so. The white person has more power. Black people have no connection to people in power. So there's not going to be any blowback on arresting a minority because they don't have any power to complain.
And Afro-Americans are not only unjustly arrested, they are not treated with the same respect as white people are.
I ran because nobody else ran again? Or if you stop somebody from going through a light, you would say, hey, out of your car. Out of your car. Show me ID. You wouldn't say that. To a white person, you would go up and say, may I see your driver's license, please? And blacks know that. Blacks know when you go, oh, out of your car, now. And then they say, whoa, what did I do? Oh, what did I do? Don't say that. Don't ask me why I'm stopping you. I said, get out of the car. And that's right there, you first disrespect. And I saw that happening, and blacks know it's happening. They know it's not happening to white people. So automatically they start resenting the police just from little verbal commands, let alone the physicality of grabbing somebody and putting them in handcuffs while you check their ID. Unfortunately, when I would tell other officers, whoa, that's enough, then they would think, hey, what are you? N for the word. What are you, an N lover?
N?
And N for Nigger. Parties have no.
This is the way it was. And the problem comes, the problem comes when it starts to happen to you. You and your community. Whoa, you please them, not us. So I can appreciate you saying, listen, you fired people and this, you took care of business for these real estate agents. But you want to know why these juries and whatnot and Rodney King, they got off. Remember that. They got indicted on federal charges. Eric Garner, no indictment. I'm pretty sure the guy, what was the guy from South Carolina? Scott Walker? I think he got off too in state charges. But he finally pled out to federal charges. Took the 20-year deal. I'm pretty sure if I recall correctly. I'm not going to go look that up. I'm just making this video long enough. But this is the issue that we're dealing with here. This is the issue that we're dealing with. So now, again, you got college students who said, I don't want any part of that. You got minorities saying a lot of times in different places, right? The bigger cities, they have no problem hiring, right? New York, Detroit, Hartford, Connecticut, New Haven, Connecticut. There's no problem. It can be a problem. They don't get as many quality recruits. Absolutely. A lot of people who would make quality recruits, even though they are minorities, they don't want anything to do with that. And I think a lot of times ladies are joining up because, number one, they probably want to be police officers. Number two, it has good benefits. But how many of them now are on Instagram and whatever? I don't know any numbers about that. But this is the quality of applicants that we're getting. This is the quality of applicants that we're getting, and it's a problem. A lot of people have been fired. Some of the physical standards have been lowered. Washington, D.C. at one time, because of the racist problems that they were having, they said, okay, we got to make sure we up these standards. So we're going to hire our police officers got to have bachelor's degrees. But that excluded a whole bunch of black people, and there was complaints about that. So now I say, you want, once you become a police officer, you got 5 years to get your bachelor's degree. Because bachelor's degree, we know, increases your critical thinking. You're more apt to use force, excessive force in particular, right? You can talk your way out of stuff because you can become more well-rounded. If you go to school, right, and not online, you actually go to the campus, right? You meet other people of different walks of life, get to interact with them. A lot of people, if you grow up in these communities and I was reading, I was listening to a podcast the other day. I don't know the numbers about this, but something like 3 out of 4, concerning the breadth of the country, right? Places like Idaho, Montana, New Hampshire, some of these really, really white places, right? 3 out of 4 white people have no interaction with black people, social interaction. Maybe they'll hire a maid or something like that, or maybe they you stop into a restaurant, whatever, the person who's serving you is black, but interaction, work with them, come to your house for Thanksgiving, come to your house for a cookout. 3 out of 4 white people don't have that. Think about that. You don't know, and so if you go to a church, or you listen to a congressman or to a senator, like I played, this is your interaction. Or you're watching BET and think they're all like that. You don't have any interaction with them. But this is the pool that formulates the people who would want to become police officers or don't want to become police officers. I see your point about the negative publicity obstructing recruiting, but I learned that the majority of juries across the country, right, the juries wanted hiring recruits of high character can be done. Profession backs the truly best and brightest. I was told by numerous experts that I had no chance to prevail in my lawsuit because the jury pool came from a pro-police Sacramento area. Listen, pro-Sacramento area, right? So sizable portion of the population of Sacramento is predominantly black, and you take those outskirt towns, they see what goes on, and they say, yeah, okay, these people got what they deserved. Because you're policing them, not us. You take care of them. Further, I was told that my case would have been successful with a jury from LA or San Francisco, where they're probably more liberal. That's not right. The verdict should be based on facts. But here's the facts. This guy's black and he should have listened. That's the facts. Or they're mentally disturbed or something like that, right? Not the geographical location where the jury selected. So I want to make this in response to him. And thank you for that. I'm not trying to, obviously I'm trying to make sure you maintain some level of secrecy there. But listen, this is why people don't want to become police officers, because of the history, because of the legacy, because of the viral videos that goes on, right? There was a New York chief, I believe, who called it the YouTube effect, and now it's on steroids, right? All these videos you watch on it, people are watching this type of stuff and they're commenting, and these viral videos and police cam videos, you watch them, they get millions of views, but that has a negative effect on the good people who grew up in good neighborhoods, good communities, who are not racist, saying, you know what, I want to sign up for that. And coincidentally, corrections is having the same issue, and so is the military. A lot of people, it's a larger problem. Part of it is the culture, part of it is the generation Y or A, or wherever we're at now. I don't know where we're at, right? Millennials don't. It's a whole large effect about about male participation in the workforce, and military readiness, and all this other stuff that we can talk about. But this is it. And then a lot of times the FBI released a report in 2006 saying that those people who are becoming police officers, a lot of them are secretly racist and part of neo-Nazi white Federation groups and all this other kind of stuff, right? That was in 2006. Now with January 6th and all these other instances, you think that's got any better? The FBI and Homeland Security no longer looking at that because of this Trump administration? You think any of that is any better? Or do you think that more racist people are signing up? They're signing up to join the military, and they're signing up to become police officers so they can get access to information and access to training. And in that report by the FBI, they said some of these police officers were actively training these right wing militia groups, taking their police training, taking their military training, and training them. And then we got black people saying you shouldn't join law enforcement, or you shouldn't join the military. You absolutely should. You absolutely should. So that's my thoughts and my opinions. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Should black people join the police departments? Because the only way you can make change in these places, given the time that we have, is to become part of the system. Are we going to be excluded and chilled out sometimes? Probably, but you can make a difference there. Listen, there were times when I was on scene. There was times, numerous times when I was on scene, I could see relief in other Black folks' face when I got there. There was times when particularly as a supervisor, man, and nothing was happening when nothing crazy was going to happen. But I remember at least 2 times where we had someone and we run their name through the system and they couldn't find anyone. They were like, yeah, you know what? We can't find anything on this guy. Let's just bring him in and let's just put him in the system. I'm like, what are you talking? Put him in the system. This guy didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. Why are we going to put him in the system? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. 2 times when I was on scene when that happened, that I can recall. And I wasn't even a supervisor at that time. I was not a supervisor at that time. Imagine if I wasn't there. Well, let's put him in this. How many times is that people just say that? Oh, just put him in the system. And one of the times I was floored because I was a senior officer to that guy. So if I had 4 years on, I became a supervisor when I had 5 years on. If I had 4 years on, let's just say I don't know, recall exactly. If I had 4 years on, this guy was on for 2 years. 2 years, he's talking about let's just put this guy in the system. What? Where'd you get this from? We're gonna put this guy in the system. Just arrest him just because we don't know who he is? So this is some of the reasons why good people don't want to become police officers. The YouTube effect, viral videos, history of problems within police departments, not wanting to take care of the bad apples that do spoil the brunch. Just some of the reasons. So let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Hit me in the comment section. Much love and peace.